What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show with myself, Huzaifa, your boy, Justin Guitar Hero James. But we got a special guest today. We are very, very happy and excited to introduce Brad Tavares, legendary middleweight fighter in the UFC. He is joining us today as well before this massive, massive UFC 308 card. Now, Brad Tavares, which is crazy, has fought he's fought Israel Adesanya, some of the greatest names in the world of mixed martial arts in the UFC, beat Chris Weidman. But what's very interesting is Brad has actually fought Robert Whittaker. So I'm very curious to know his thoughts when we get to Whittaker versus Chimaev in this main event or in UFC 308 tomorrow, which is going to be crazy. Anyways, and we're going to I'm coming to Vegas tomorrow. We're all going to be together. Cannot wait. And we're going to watch this card unfold. So anyways, before we jump into everything, did you guys have a chance to see the UFC weigh-ins for 308?
I did not.
Okay, so
I just saw some highlights of it. I just saw some highlights of Khamzat looking like shit.
Okay, all right. So I want to talk about this first. So there wasn't anything that actually Victor Hugo did miss weight by like 10 pounds, and now they moved that fight up to featherweight, which I think a lot of people are talking about. Right. When we're talking about the main event, I think the main it's crazy.
Dude, and you gotta talk. And let me talk about Brad for a second. I've known Brad for a really long time. The guy's been at Extreme Couture. He's been our team captain for 10 years. That's something, I mean, that has never even come close to you, Brad. I see you jump in the tub and you just handle business. Eric said you're one of the easiest guys to cut weight with. Have you ever struggled making weight? Can you imagine missing by 10 pounds, let alone 1 pound, but 10?
I cannot, bro. 10 to me, 10 pounds shows you didn't even try. Like 10 pounds? 10 pounds is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. DC was saying on the weigh-in show, he's like, I kind of like Victor Hugo because he's just so disrespectful with that missed weight. Something like that.
Sorry, fellas. My phone just rang. Let me do not.
Oh, you're all good.
No sweat.
No worries at all. Okay. So
you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I lost my audio now.
All right, no worries. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we got you.
I can't hear you guys. What the hell is going on? Hold on.
You know what? It's all good. Why don't you can log off and rejoin?
What happened to my audio? Let me reconnect really quick.
Yeah,
I can see you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so Brad's going to be joining back in 1 second. Now, we got to talk about these weigh-ins because this is crazy. So you said Khamzat looked terrible. Well, I want to show you guys. We're going to look at the Khamzat weigh-ins right now, and we're going to give our thoughts. I really want to get Brad's thoughts too, so hopefully he's going to jump back in 1 second. Okay, so let's check this out. I see Brad there. All right.
Okay.
All right, Brad, I think you're back in now. Brad, I want to show you. This is the clip of Khamzat weighing in. I'd love to get your thoughts.
No. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're all good. You're all good. No worries. Now, here's the thing. I want to give you a little backstory. So I know Khamzat is trained at Extreme Couture. I know he's buddies with some of the fighters at your gym. And I'm a big fan of Khamzat. He's my favorite fighter. And I've been looking forward to this fight for I don't even know how long. I saw the weigh-ins. I was watching the entire weigh-in show yesterday. And this really worried me. But I wanted to get both your guys' opinions and thoughts on how he looked, the weigh-in, and if this gives you cause for concern. So let's check this out.
All right.
$186, the official weight for Khamzat Chimaev.
So Brad, I want to ask you. You fought Whittaker. You've trained with Khamzat. Like from a skill standpoint, where do you put these guys next to each other?
The Khamzat is one of those guys. Like he kind of like a Khabib in a sense. You know, like he's not like the most well-rounded fighter, but in his one aspect of what he does, which is his wrestling and his ground game, he is very, very good. You know, he's an expert there. That being said, you know, we've not really ever seen anybody really out wrestle Rob in that type of sense. I think the best wrestler, let's think back, the best wrestler he's probably fought is Yoel Romero. And even you all did it. It's like, like that type of wrestling and that ground pressure. Although granted, that's not really Yoel's style either. He's a great wrestler, but he's not like that Khabib or like Khamzat. I think, if the thing I wouldn't get too concerned about Khamzat with the weight cut is that this is at 185 and he's made 170 a handful of times. Granted, yeah, he's missed weight also at 170, but I would be more concerned if this fight was at 170 and and is this a 3-rounder? It's a 3-rounder, right?
5-rounder.
Oh, 5. Okay, then yeah, then that even more so for me, I would side with Rob because we know Rob can go all 5 rounds. We have not seen Khamzat have to do that or do that. And I don't know if he's ever even been in a 5-round fight, but I remember his 3-rounder against Gilbert. He started slowing down there at the end. And 5 rounds, that's a full another 10 minutes. Yeah, if he's struggling with the weight, that's going to play a big factor.
Now you went 5 rounds before, I assume. Have you been in the tell us the difference. Tell us the difference. I've went 5 rounds at a much lower level on the regional scene, but when you're fighting the best fighters in the world, Israel Adesanya, how much different is it going 5 rounds instead of 3 in your opinion, your experience?
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference. You definitely cannot approach training the same way. Say we do X amount of rounds on mitts for a 3-round fight. You're gonna probably do 2 to 3 more rounds easily of that. Same with your sparring, your conditioning. It all has to get amped up and ramped up because you're fighting 2 extra rounds. That's a lot more, and especially like when it would be different if okay, I'm gonna fight 3 rounds right now, rest, and then fight 2 rounds later or something. That was completely different. But you're fighting them 5 rounds, 25 minutes, like that's a lot.
So now, for you, one more question. Sorry, Huzaifa, but for you, when you take a game plan approach to 5 rounds or 3 rounds, Khamzat has so much early output in those rounds with his wrestling, with his striking. He's a pressure forward fighter. Do you think he's going to dial back his game plan to survive those last 4 and 5 rounds if it goes that far?
I don't necessarily think that he will, just because he's never had to before, and he's one of those guys. It's like if you take somebody that's so successful at one thing, Ronda Rousey, for example. Ronda Rousey was so successful in, we're gonna fight, throw hands, whatever. It might not be the prettiest, but I'm gonna clinch you. I'm gonna do that hip toss, get you to the ground, arm bar. And then when she comes across somebody that absolutely shuts that down, she struggles, right? With Khamzat, he's not really had to have that struggle yet. This might be that fight for that. This might be that fight where he has to change his approach. So it would be smart if he and his team did be like, hey, look, this is 5 rounds. This is a veteran fighter. We got to dial it back and, like maybe slow our approach and pick our shots. But because he's not had to do it, I honestly can see him coming out, and he's ultra confident. I can honestly see him coming out and just trying to impose that same exact game plan and his will the way he does in all his other fights, because he's not had any type of there's been like no pushback against it. Nobody has been able to stop his takedowns. No one, like Gilbert has been his toughest fight to date, and I'm sure in his head though he feels like whatever, it's so long ago that it happened, kind of forgot the feeling of what it was like getting tired, probably smashes all his training partners in training, and so he's just riding that high wave of confidence. So I think he's gonna come out and do exactly the same that he's been doing, just pressure forward, going for those shots and try to keep the fight there.
I think that, I kind of agree with you. And also, looking back at the Usman fight, he was very successful. He was extremely successful in the first round with that exact game plan. He was dominating Usman. He almost had the finish. And then he did have that hand injury in round 1 that prevented him from being as aggressive in round 2 and round 3. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then, Brad, I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know if this is if I'm overhyping this or not. But if you, I watched the entire lead up to UFC 308, and they go to where Khamzat is training. Now, these are the things that he's done for this training camp, and to me, it seems like it's an indication that he's taken it super seriously and really dialed in on all aspects of training. But he's moved his entire camp to the mountains of Russia. He's completely isolated from community and society and away from people. He's got like the best coaches, wrestling coaches and striking coaches in the country of Russia. He's training at the Olympic facility there. He's training at altitude to increase the red blood cells. His coach said it will increase the amount of red blood cells 4x in his body, and that will stay in his body for 90 days after he comes down from the mountain. So I feel like he's taking all the steps to prepare for a 5-round fight, doing things in a very, and he's got a nutritionist now and he's dialed in, right? Obviously the weight cut seemed a little harder than we expected, but do all these things that he's doing, that he's implementing, that he's taking it so seriously, does that give you more confidence in Khamzat, or do you feel like that's kind of overhyped? We can't pay as much attention to that and you're still picking Whittaker?
No, 100%. I still think, like, for me, just looking at it fight to fight, I know that when Whittaker fought Dricus, right, he came out after and said, like, look, that was my fault. I dropped the ball. I didn't take him as serious, this, that, and whatever. And for somebody like Whittaker, I get what he's saying. You know, it's not like he's out there and not training and whatnot. But I think when, you know, like when you've been doing it for so long, maybe, you know, it takes something like that, losing to Dricus, to remind him, like, oh shit, I don't like how this feels. Like, I gotta change this up, that up, whatever. And then so Khamzat, on the other hand, is like, he's doing what he needs to do. I was unaware of all that stuff, but I think that's great for him. I think that he's showing now that he's taking this 5-round fight seriously, you know. But that being said, I think even more so, to the point that we were speaking on earlier, is that because of all that training, I think he'll have that confidence to think that he can just come in like, oh, I've been training in the mountains, I've been going crazy, I can just motor on for 5 rounds. And I think that's what we'll see out of him. I still think, you know, like, I still like Whittaker in this fight, just because, again, like, Khamzat's style, I've not seen anybody been able to do that to Whittaker. And now if he comes in and is able to do what he's done to pretty much everybody else to Whittaker, then that will, bro, like, that's huge. You know, that puts him right up there for title contention. He should probably get the next shot after Sean and Dricus fight. He should fight the winner of that.
I have a fantasy matchup, Brad. I'm just curious your thoughts on it. You know, with your takedown defense, now Brad's one of the, I mean, he doesn't really display his wrestling in his fights because he doesn't need to. I mean, fuck, have you ever been taken down in a fight? And if you have, I mean, you've only been held down very briefly. Now, do you think your style with your wrestling defense would match up well against Khamzat?
Yeah, I think so. Because he wants to wrestle, and, you know, like, that's one thing I've kind of built my career off of, is stopping these guys' takedowns, you know. So it would be fun. And you would think that out of all the times he's actually come to Couture's, we would have, you know, been able to get some rounds in or whatever. But, you know, we never have. Like, it was either I wasn't there a day or he wasn't there a day. It just never happened.
For sure.
You know, one other thing you just mentioned too, right, Brad? You said, hey, if he does that to Whittaker, nobody's ever done that to Whittaker, so that'd be crazy. I also want to throw out, nobody had ever done that to Usman. Nobody had ever done what Khamzat did to Usman.
But short notice, Usman's coming off a lot of knee injuries. You know, dude, listen, Huzaifa is gonna stroke Khamzat every, like, dude, just straight, like, you know, it's his favorite fighter. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But I'm not, like I said, this 5-round against a guy that isn't going to get taken down. You know, Gilbert, and he missed weight against Gilbert. It was a short notice against, you know, Usman. I just don't think, and it's at 170. This is at 85. We have a bigger guy. I just think there's so many new variables being introduced at middleweight with this bigger opponent that can't get taken down.
Yeah.
I would say this is his biggest test by far. Like, this is the test to prove if he is what, you know, what you think he is, what he's built to be, like, built out to be, hyped to be, whatever you want to say. This is that test right here. Yes. If he does get past Whittaker, and if he does do it in, you know, like, if it's pretty dominant, 100% believe that at that point, yeah, let him get the next shot.
Sure.
Because Whittaker is right there, always right there at the top. You know, he's like that number 1, number 2 guy always. There's you know, they do champion and then 1 and 2, whatever, however that works. You know, you would think the champion is the number 1 guy, but they do champion, then down 1 to 10, and Whittaker is always right up there, 1 or 2.
I mean, this is exactly why this fight is so exciting. And how amazing is it that we have Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway at the top of the card? But to me, and again, obviously I'm biased because Chimaev is my favorite fighter. I've been waiting for him to have this opportunity for years. And it's finally here. This to me is the most exciting fight. For me, it's the most exciting fight of the year. And I cannot wait because it's going to answer all these questions. And I do think Khamzat's going to win. But it's funny. I think it sounds like both you guys are choosing Whittaker. And from most people that I'm listening to, most professional fighters, which is worrying me, are picking Whittaker. Very few people are picking Khamzat. And I think it's a combination of the illnesses and the some of these unknown factors, but I don't know. I still believe he can pull it off, and I think it's going to be in impressive fashion. But I guess we'll find out, and that's the fun of going forward with these fights and these main events. So is that right, Brad and Justin? Are you guys both taking Whittaker?
I am.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I am too.
am.
I just think he's battle tested. He's been there. He's done that. You know, Khamzat is a great front runner. He looks great when he's winning, but I haven't seen him have to persevere through much, you know, besides his injuries and his sickness. But exactly. I mean, you look at Brad, how many times have you broken your hand, you know, and you got to get through that and this and that, like you get injured in fights, shit happens. I mean, when you're a front runner, you know, there's guys, you see it all the time when they're winning. There's certain guys I think of in my head, you know, that I'm not going to say because I don't want to, you know, talk shit. But when they're winning, it's easy to win. But when you have to persevere through an injury, persevere through getting tired, persevere through losing a round or 2 rounds in a row, that's to me what really shows what a champion is. You look like Anderson Silva, obviously, to me, one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Have you fought Anderson, Brad? Brad, did you fight Anderson?
I have not. And
what a crazy match that would be.
I agree with you. I think Anderson is the GOAT middleweight to me.
I mean, look at what he did to Chael Sonnen. He loses 4 rounds in a row and then finds a way, and that's what champions do. They find ways to win when their back's against the wall. Again, he was down 0 rounds to 4, and he subs Chael Sonnen with a triangle choke. Like I want to see Khamzat battle through. I want to see him persevere through some bad situations before I can call him one of the greatest.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, Justin. For me too, is I need to see Khamzat face some adversity in a fight. Yeah. I'm sure he's faced it outside of fights. You know, we obviously know he's dealt with a few sicknesses in the past. He's debated retiring. Basically, from what I understand from the leader of their country, he's forced not to retire. Like, no, you're not retiring. You are fighting type deals. And so I know he's faced adversity in life, but as far as like in a fight goes, we haven't really had to see him face adversity. We've not had to see him come from behind. We've not had to see him getting hurt or stunned or dropped or in any real bad positions and then come back and show that, you know, that he does have the grit to do it. Again, though, with this fight here, this is the ultimate test. And if he gets past Whittaker, I 100% believe he deserves the next shot.
Now, personal question for Brad now. So obviously you have fought everybody who's a who's who. You have over 30 professional MMA fights, mostly being in the UFC. Is there one moment particular that sticks out to you in your career? Like, hey, this one time I had to persevere. Maybe I got dropped in a round and I had to come back and battle back. I'm sure there's multiple, but is there one specific instance during your career that really sticks out to you? You're like, dude, I'm fucking proud of this moment. I show that I have fucking dog because of this moment.
I would say, I would have to say probably the Israel fight. You know,
Sure.
Going into that fight, again, adversity. I dealt with some shit. I had broke my foot before that fight, and I don't know if you guys even remember this. So there was so much drama right before that fight. So I was on my way to Hawaii for a wedding or something, and this was like in the middle of camp, and I took the time off because I had broke my foot or fractured it, whatever. I hurt my foot. Anyhow, I got it x-rayed, this, that, whatever. They said, yeah, you have this, you're broke here, your foot is broken. But I was still training. I wasn't kicking, obviously, but I was still able to push off, do certain things, right? I had no intention of withdrawing from this fight. Anyway, I take this 6-hour flight to Hawaii. I get off the plane and boom, my phone just starts blowing up. Messages here, there, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I heard you're out of the fight. Sorry, blah, blah. Ariel Helwani's hitting me. Can I get a comment? Blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff. Mind you, Israel and I are the main event for this card here. Anyway, so I talked to Mick. Mick tells me like, hey, bro, I don't know how they got, like, I don't know how Dana got to this point of you're not going to fight, because the last we spoke to him, I told him you're going to fight, like, because Mick was aware of my injury. But again, there was no issue of I wasn't going to fight. You know, I was 100% going to fight. Anyway, long story short, the fight goes on. I end up taking the fight, dealt with all that drama, whatever. So adversity, you know, dealing with drama before the fight. Get into the fight. The very first kick I threw against Israel, I hit him in his quad, not even like anything hard. I didn't kick an elbow, I didn't kick a shin, a knee, any of that. And my foot just immediately blows up. And I don't know if I threw any kicks with my right leg after that. But anyhow, in that fight, man, he cut me, freaking kicked the shit out of my leg. So that was one of those fights I was like, you know what? I gotta dig deep here. I'm fucking, you know, he's putting it on me, but like what I'm gonna do? Like bitch out and quit? Nah, you know. So I would say if like that's the type of that fight there is that type of moment you're speaking of for me.
And if you haven't seen it, if it's an incredible battle, like Brad, and that's the coolest part. Just to, you know, this is a guy that I look up to, guys, and you know, me and Brad have a relationship outside the gym. We've spearfished together. This is a guy that I look to for advice. Brad, dude, it's hearing that story, you know, with Israel and watching the fight. You know, Huzaifa and I talk a lot about he's not a fighter, so he doesn't understand. During fight camps, we get hurt, we get injured, we get sick, we get cut, and all we can do is just deal with it. You know, like a lot of times, like we talk on the show about, oh, well, leading up to this fight, he hurt his hand, he hurt his foot. Like there's just to go to show you one of the greatest in the world, one of the greatest come out of Extreme Couture, Brad Tavares, going in and fighting. You know, some people call Israel the greatest middleweight of all time. I think he's incredible, but I don't think he's the greatest. I think Anderson is. And, you know, to go up, he knew the task at hand. And that was before Israel was the champ, but he knew he was coming into this realm. And, dude, Brad, that just goes to show how, I mean, Brad's as tough as a dog, man. When you talk about, because I run the kids program too, when I talk about fighters that I want my kids to look up to, Brad is definitely up there because, for one, he's in the gym 24/7. And when he is in the gym not training, he's in there with his daughter doing gi grappling, doing no gi grappling, working with Bryce Harley. Like, this is a guy that I want all my fighters to look up to. And thank you for starting that story because that's just fucking incredible.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
And guys, if you guys are joining right now, just to give you guys a heads up, so we got Brad Tavares from Extreme Couture, legendary middleweight fighter, is joining the show today to talk about UFC 308. So he was just talking about how he fought Israel Adesanya. He's also fought
Brad. Do you have
Whittaker.
Yep. Do you have a hard stop at 30 minutes? Do you have a hard stop at 30 minutes, Brad? I told you 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I know you're busy.
I gotta go. Yeah, I gotta. My daughter's off, so we gotta go do some stuff. But yeah, let's knock it out.
I'd love to get Brad's opinion on the main event. Can we jump to Ilia Topuria versus?
Let's
do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Brad, I'd love to hear your thoughts. We've been going back and forth. Justin's leaning Max. I'm leaning Ilia. We've both got our reasons, but let's let you take it away. What are your thoughts, if you don't mind sharing, and why?
Bro, so obviously, you know, you might think, oh, a little biased, the Hawaii connection. Max is actually a friend of mine. But that being said, I really like Ilia. You know, he and we fought on a card together a couple years back. So we got to hang out a bunch. And, dude, he is a super cool dude. And I'm a fan of Ilia, actually. I like his fighting style. I really like his fighting style. You know, if honestly, outside of him fighting Max or Dan, I'd probably be rooting for him. But here, you know, biases aside, just looking at it as fighter versus fighter, I really do think that this is not like, I feel like the odds makers just think like, oh, Ilia this, Ilia that, you know, and that's the way the lines are. But I think this is a good fight for Max. You know, like Max has the length, he has the height, he also has the footwork and the cardio. You know, like Max is not, and I see Ilia baiting. Hey, first 10 seconds, let's point down this and that. You know, I feel like that's Ilia's best chance. And I honestly hope Max doesn't, even though that's Max's like signature move, I hope Max doesn't give it to him at any point, because that's all Ilia needs is those 10 seconds in the pocket, you know. But I don't know. I just see Max's experience. I see his footwork, his length, and just his cardio, you know, being able to move and pick them apart and just throw different things at him. And it won't just be a boxing match, you know, like I know they're talking about so much boxing this, boxing that, but I think we'll see a well-rounded MMA match.
What about Ilia's grappling, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling base, which is a lot of the foundation of his game? I think people are unaware that he has a Greco-Roman wrestling background, as well as he's trained in jiu-jitsu for years and years. He's a black belt. How do you think that's going to play into the fight? Do you see a lot of grappling, or do you see it still being mostly a striking battle?
I see it being mostly a striking battle. That's because even if Ilia does decide to mix that in there, which he would be smart to do, Max is excellent at defending takedowns and even getting back up. Like, honestly, I can't even remember the last time Max got taken down. I remember early on in his career when he first made it to the UFC, you know, that was something he was struggling with. And I actually like worked with him a little bit back in the day. Like he would pick my brain, you know, he was a younger fighter coming up and asking me like, oh, what I thought about this and that, this position. That's one thing great about Max from the time that I've known him, from when he was like a young kid, like fighting in high school, you know, doing kickboxing fights. He was always hungry and eager to learn and grow and be better. And I still see that in him till this day. But yeah, I don't think a lot of this fight, you know, is going to be spent on the ground. I do know Ilia is actually a wrestler, and he has that wrestling pedigree and background. He has those submissions too. But again, when is the last time you've seen anybody take Max down, let alone keep him there?
True. Very true. Brad, I know you've got to go in a couple of minutes. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for joining. It's so much fun for, well, me especially. I know, Justin, you were teammates, but for me to meet other UFC fighters, I'm just the biggest fan of the sport. And I have so much respect for all fighters who train and put themselves out there for our entertainment value, and just to show us like what is possible in life, what you can work through, the adversity you can overcome. And I like to take those lessons for myself in my daily journeys and whatever I'm trying to do. So thank you again for joining. Do you have any last thoughts that you want to share about UFC 308 before I know you have to jump off?
No, just shout out to my boy Dan Ige. You know, that's for me will be the main fight.
Yeah, why don't we break down that real quick? Dan Ige's fighting a guy who's 14-0-1.
Yes.
I don't recognize his name, but the little bit of research I've done, this guy's a fucking stud. And you know, I hope that the UFC isn't using Dan as a stepping stone, because Dan Ige is a contender. This guy is as tough as nails. He's shown it time and time again. He showed up short notice, 24-hour notice, goes and fights Diego Lopez, who's going to be fighting for a belt soon. This guy is not a gatekeeper. This guy is not a stepping stone. This undefeated fighter coming in to face Dan Ige is going to have his hands full. Brad, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So, you know, again, you know, I've been in that position many a times. And for me, I'm like, you know what, like, don't even take it personally. Go out there and show them what's up. So, yeah, obviously, this kid is undefeated. I think he just most recently beat Edson Barboza. I don't know if that was his last fight, but I know he beat him. So they share a common opponent, both with a win over. But yeah, definitely, you know, when you see a young up and coming fighter that's undefeated going against another veteran guy who's already ranked, you know what's on stake there. But you know, I think Dan has looked great, and that's one of the things about Dan, and I love it. And is that a lot of times odd makers, matchmakers, whatever it may be, you know, they just like in the Diego Lopez, you don't even give him a shot. You know, like people are like, oh no, he has no shot. And then he comes out there and, you know, he could have arguably freaking in the third round, if he let Diego up, he could have, I think he would have stopped him, honestly. And this would be a completely different fight this weekend. But I'm just, you know, I think Dan is one of the best dudes I know, and then one of the best fighters I know. And he's no stranger to surprising and shocking everybody. So I won't be shocked if he comes out there tomorrow morning and starches this guy. And I know a lot of people might probably be, but I won't.
All right, right on. Let's go. We can't wait for that fight. Dan Ige, that's Lerone Murphy, by the way, that he's fighting.
Yeah, Murphy.
And, yep. Undefeated 14-0-1. I think he has one no contest, something like that. But anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much, Brad. We really, really appreciate it. I know it's 11:01, so I'm trying to make sure we don't keep you over. Obviously, you're welcome to stay if you want to stay, but if you got to go, you got to go. We understand.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me. And again, like anytime, bro. Anytime you guys want me back on, you know, Justin is a brother to me, so no problem. And it's great to meet you.
Bro. Thanks,
Likewise.
bro. I really appreciate it.
Great to meet you, Brad. Thank
You
you
guys
so
have
much.
a good one. Thank you guys for having me.
You too, Brad. Thank you.
All right, you too.
All right.